Alors, welcome Ideren, bonsoir tout le monde. Nous sommes ici en présence de Isaac Ezban pour le Q&A de ce soir du film Evil Eyes. Welcome Iedereen voor de Q&A van de regisseur van de film van vanavond, Evil Eyes. En maak een applaudissement pour notre guest de ce soir. Et bonsoir aussi à nos viewers on YouTube. Thank you for being with us tonight. The Q&A will be in English.
Yes, thank you, Isaac, for being with us. So, of course, this is not your first BIFF. I think that was pretty clear. Will you ever be disappointed by our audience's reaction? How was it with this movie?
No, I think I will never be disappointed by the audience reaction. It's great, the enthusiasm, how they clap at every single logo, every single name. But also, you know, it's also great the unexpectedness of it all, because you know, one thinks or tries to guess which are the moments that the audience are going to be more excited about or clap more, but maybe moments that I didn't even think would cause any emotion, like, I don't know, like the grandma appearing for the first time. Everyone's like, ooh, like, I just wish I had a translator with me telling me everything they're saying. But then in the end, I'm in the back row of the theater making a video with my phone when Nala is killing her mother, because I'm sure everyone's gonna go like, ah, and it's all silent. But I guess that's a compliment to the movie, because that means they're so into the movie, they forget to yell and clap and all that, and that happens a lot. I feel like in the first half, people react more, because it's just starting, so it feels like, oh, they wanna, you know, have a good time. But when they're into the movie, they forget to do all that. So both ways is appreciated, yeah.
Although probably if you made an alternate ending where she kills the grandmother and gets actual revenge or something,
then they probably clap. No, but we have that. I mean, she doesn't kill her, but we have a moment where they fight and she hits her in the face and all that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that felt good, I have to say.
Yeah, there was some revenge, I think, in this film for sure. As you said during the presentation, you came here with all your film, but it was more like sci-fi film. You are a big fan of sci-fi film, and here you come with a horror film based on Mexican folklore. Why this change of genre?
Well, like I said, I always consider myself more of a horror guy than a sci-fi guy. But for some reason, I ended up doing sci-fi movies. I think I'm like a closet sci-fi, like I want to do horror, but sci-fi is what comes through, you know? So I think that's what happened with my first 3 movies. But I consider myself a huge horror fan. I watch horror movies all the time. I make my lists and rankings of the horror movies of the year. That's like, I try to watch new movies and old movies. But whenever I'm watching new movies, I'm always focused on horror. Horror is what I watch the most. And I also consider that any sci-fi movie needs to become a horror movie in the last 20 minutes. So in a way, I was doing horror. And if you see my 3 sci-fi movies, they are sci-fi, but it's very dark, obscure, macabre, like somber sci-fi. So I was doing horror in a way, but I always wanted to do something horror, and I always wanted to do coming of age, because I feel like that coming of age is a narrative that fits very much with horror, because in a way a coming of age movie is when it's about a character discovering adulthood, discovering the adult world. So I think this movie is about that. You know, this is the story of Nala discovering who she is, discovering sexuality, and what a way to discover it, discovering the past, discovering the story of her mother, discovering blood, discovering death, even having to kill her own mother just to discover who she really is. That's what the story is all about. So I really always wanted to do coming of age horror. I've explored coming of age in other short films, in passages of other movies, and I finally made a movie that is a completely coming of age, but it's something that was always inside of me.
But then I have a question, because that is the theme of your movie, the coming of age. But at the same time, I read in some interviews that you wanted to make a horror film based on Mexican folklore, a lot of urban legend, myth of Mexican society and culture. So Is it first the theme of coming of age that you used, or the tale, Mexican tale, that you used to make your script? How did it work?
Well, I think it's both. It's got both of them at the same time. But you know, to tell about the script and how I got to the script is interesting because originally the script actually doesn't come from Mexico. It comes from the Dominican Republic, and it started as a possible work for hire, and then ended up becoming one of my most personal films yet, because originally I got the script submitted by a producer who called me and said, Isaac, I want you to direct this movie. It comes from the Dominican Republic. It's a coming-of-age horror. And I was like, whoa, coming-of-age horror, where do I sign? Even before reading it, right? Then I read the script, and the original script was very different than what you just saw tonight. The original script had the legend with the, you know, with the triplets and with the baka and all this. But that's pretty much it. The original script, like the first act was very close, where you have these girls arriving in the house of grandma, and you have this legend, they tell them the legend. But then after the first 25 minutes, the whole story was very slow. It was just about how the girl discovers the album and discovers this is the legend. But they had none of the grandma wanting to be a witch, none of the grandma wanting to suck on the blood and become young and replace the mother, none of that. So I read it, and instead of focusing so much on whether I liked it or not, I decided to focus on whether this script had potential or not. I decided it had potential because what I like about the original script was the mythology. I've never seen this mythology of witches taking the skin out, or the baka, this creature. So I said to myself, okay, I want to do something with this mythology. But I think the script needs a lot of work. So I told the producer, I will do it if I can become a co-writer. And he said, of course, you become a co-writer. And then we were three writers, the producer, the original writer, and myself. And the three of us made a very, very collaborative process where we all talked about the script, how to make it better. And in that process, the producer and I came up with all the story of what if the grandma wants to be a witch, so she wants to replace the mother, and she wants to take her spot and all that. So we started thinking about all that. And then I also decided to bring some stuff of my own to the movie, you know, because I think themes that I have explored in my other movies, like themes that are obsessions of mine, like the passage of time, like identity, like duplicity or doppelgangers, like getting older or getting younger, like our physical bodies and how they shape our identity, like decrepity, like all that. I brought all those themes into the script. And then when it was finished, it was still taking place in the Dominican Republic. The story, it was going to be a co-production, Mexico, Dominican Republic. We were going to shoot in 2020, and then of course, like everyone else, 2020 fell upon us, so the plans changed. They were going to shoot in 2021, but it was really hard to make the cooperation with the DR, Dominican Republic, happen. So we just decided to move the story to Mexico. And it was until then when I started thinking, you know what? There's no reason why we need to do this in the Dominican Republic. It's a very small country that a lot of people don't know much about. Let's just move this to Mexico and we can do the exact same story. We have in Mexico, near Veracruz, we have a town of Catemaco, which is a town, it's like a magic town with witchcraft, where you actually have a lot of influence from the Africa, Caribbean, coming from Dominican Republic and other places. So we just said, let's just have the story take place there, in the Africa, Caribbean of Veracruz. So we decided to move the story to Mexico with Mexican actors and actresses, say goodbye to the Dominican Republic. And then in the end, the story is not even taking place in Veracruz because of we shot all in the city, so it didn't look like Veracruz. So we decided to just leave it ambiguous, like you don't know where they are. You just know they were someplace in the country and that happens. But to answer your question in concrete, yes, we did a lot of research on Afro-Caribbean mythology, how that got to Mexico, how they dress in rituals, how they do all the witchcraft, and I was excited to tell us a horror story with a Mexican folklore and Latin American folklore, because I see nowadays, we see a lot of witchcraft movies trying to imitate American or European traditions, right? And even horror movies in general. You see horror movies in Mexico trying to be something like The Conjuring, or about a movie about a possessed child, or a haunted house, or an exorcism. So it's trying to copy what Americans do well. And I think what we need in Mexico is to do horror movies about our own mythology, you know? So that's why I like movies like Vuelven, that also played here, like Belzebut, like Huesera, like Somos Lo Que Hay, horror movies that deal with the Mexican folklore, the Mexican society, Mexican politics, and that's what I wanted to do with Witchcraft. Yeah.
And I also meant to ask, it's not only about mythology, there's also some very realistic aspects, maybe education, or I don't know, criticizing families, or the way families function. But that also part of the personal aspects that you wanted to add to this script?
Yes, you know, somebody told me once why they cannot do a horror movie without children, and I think to answer that is, I feel like horror movies are great when they are about something we really fear in reality, not a monster or a witch or the devil. So that's why so many horror movies focus on family, because we are all really afraid of something happening to somebody from our family, something happening to our children, or somebody from our family not being who she says she is, like the grandma. That's why my favorite horror movie of all time is The Shining, because what scares me the most about The Shining is not so much the twins or the ghosts or the mythology of the hotel. It's more the fact that a father goes crazy and hurts his own family. That's what's really scary. What if one day I hurt my family, you know? So that's why I wanted to talk about that, about family. And that's why so many horror movies are about family, because that's what we fear the most. So yeah, in a way, it's a horror movie about family. It's a horror movie about the horrors of old age, which is something I see a lot. And I was talking to the directors of The Elderly, Viejos, that played last night. So it's interesting because in the last 2 years or so, we're kind of seeing the comeback of horror about old age, right? Like you have filmmakers like Ty West, who did X. You have the Spaniards, who did films like The Grandmother by Paco Plaza, like Venus by Jaume Balaguero, like these guys who did Viejos that played yesterday. You have Mal de Ojo. So maybe it's the pandemic or something, but there used to be so many movies about children trying to hurt you, children being possessed, and now you have kind of like a comeback of the horror about old age, which, like all horror, comes from a real part. We all love our grandmothers or grandparents, but there's something mysterious about them. There's a past we don't know. There's something creepy underneath. And this movie takes on that and makes it huge, you know? I always say it's like the movie that could make for grandmothers what Jaws did for The Water. So it's about grandmothers, it's about kids, it's about family, it's about education, it's about femininity as well. It's a very feminine horror movie where all the lead characters are females and the male characters are very small and only serve a very specific purpose for the females. So that's what it's all about. Yeah.
There's a lot of blaming going on as well, manipulation through blaming, I feel.
Blame and like guilt. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
making guilty, yes.
Yeah, of course, because I feel the mother feels very guilty about what she's doing to the kids in the building in Mexico. So it's a movie about guilt in a way, yeah.
Est-ce que quelqu'un dans le public a une question, ce qui vous brûle les lèvres, ou online? Il y a également le live stream, donc n'hésitez pas à poser une question si vous le souhaitez dans le live stream. Ah, je vois que nous avons effectivement une question dans le live stream. So I'm going to read the question. So how is it for you to be back at the BIF, and what was your favorite film to work on? That's someone from the YouTube live stream.
How is it to be back at BIF, and what was your favorite film to work on? Well, to be back at BIF is simply amazing. This has to be like my favorite festival because of the audience, because the people I meet here every time, because the people I talk to. And you know, one of the greatest things, this is what we make movies for. To be able to travel with our movies, to present them with the audience, and to make what I call friends of the road. Friends of different countries, different continents. You maybe only see once every 2 or 3 years when you go to a festival. And I feel I have a lot of friends like that at BIF. I have a lot of friends of the road that I only see here. And also, you know, the whole experience, the audience, how they treat you, they really make you feel like home. This time I'm also a jury, so I feel like they treat me twice. That's nice because I'm a guest, a director, and also a jury. So it's amazing to be back at BIF. I love the new venue. I know it's not in the center, it's farther, but it feels like more space, and it feels like home. So I love to be back at BIF. And also the movies, you know, I've been seeing a lot of movies of the international competition as a jury. Sometimes I see them by myself because I need to see them because they make like private screenings. But today I was like, oh, I need to see a movie that is not in the competition just because I miss seeing a movie with the audience, you know? So it's amazing to be back at BIF. And then the other question was, what is my favorite movie that I worked on? That's a hard question. It feels like every movie I make, I learn something else. So I can tell you this was the hardest one, definitely. I cannot tell, like my favorite, probably maybe like my favorite in how I enjoy the time working, maybe a movie like The Similars, which also played at BIF, where I felt I had a lot of control. Like I was very, I don't know, it was just a very happy time of my life.
And how was this one very hard then?
Well, because of what I said at the beginning of the movie. This movie has a lot of challenges. This movie has little children, older adults, it has fights, it has creatures, it has prosthetics, special makeup effects, complicated locations, night shootings, animals, COVID, all the complications you can put into a movie. And also, you know, the biggest complication of them all is always time. This is a movie that needed 7 weeks shooting because of all the stuff I told you about. We did it in 6 weeks. So, and every day was like a huge battle against all those obstacles, but also against time. And I'm really happy with the result. It's a movie where I felt I had to grow a lot as a filmmaker. Also, this is my most commercial movie to date, meaning that in my other movies, I mean, except for Parallel, but in my other 2 movies, it was just me doing my crazy movie and I could do whatever I want. But in this movie, we had the investment of Cinépolis, which is a big, Cinépolis is the 4th biggest theater chain in the world, but they have also joined production, so they are producing this movie, and they are also distributors. So because they were aiming big to make this like a huge horror release, they were like coming to the shooting, taking photos for the poster, making videos for the making of, and like, we finished shooting and the next day the poster was ready. And they were like, we finished shooting in December 2021. And they were like, we have the release date, September 2022. So the post-production was really quick. Like start editing in January and have the release, not the complete movie, but the release in September. So in that sense, there was a lot of pressure over my shoulders to deliver what could be a commercial movie and also an Isaac Ezban movie. And I feel I did it both ways. You know, I feel if you look at the movie, something I'm really proud about this movie is that it kind of lives in both worlds. This movie was a box office success because it became the 3rd highest Mexican movie of the year and #1 in Mexican horror in the last 3 years. But it also became a festival hit. You know, it traveled to all the major genre festivals. And I feel like all my other movies had been only one of those worlds. And maybe my next movies will be in one of those worlds too. But this is the movie that managed to be in both worlds, and that's something I celebrate, because it's hard to be in both those worlds. And the reason why the movie fit both those worlds, I believe, is that whoever wants to see a very classic, very conventional, very traditional horror movie with a traditional story about 2 girls arriving in the house of a grandmother that is not who she says she is, they will find it in this movie. But whoever wants to see a more elevated, more ballsy, more risky, more auteur-driven, more personal horror movie, they will also find it in this movie. So that's why I feel the movie fits both worlds, but that's why it was very hard, because I had this pressure, yeah.
Talking about complication, and you mentioned the location, the manor. Well, I heard that this manor was really haunted and that was a complication at first for the shooting of the film. Can you tell us a little bit about
you heard
that?
that's a good story. You heard that story, yeah. So this house where we shot the movie, the interior of the house, it's a house that is located in Calzada de la Viga near Iztapalapa. It's a house that is from like the 1930s, so it's a very old house. And when we got to the house, we started doing like camera tests and everything. We were happy with how the house is looking. But then the weekend before we started shooting, so like we start on a Monday, and Saturday, my producer starts calling me like all the time, like every 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, what does he want? I'm with my family before I start a 6-week movie, you know? And then I respond and he's like, Isaac, I need to tell you something. Weird shit is going on in the house. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, a driver of the production design department broke his hand. My pet, he has a dog, my pet ate something and it was poisoned and we had to take him to the vet. Somebody else fell through the stairs, somebody lost his things, I don't know, like weird shit is happening. So I'm doing research, Isaac, and I'm seeing that people that have shot in this house tells me that weird shit is happening in this house. So I want to ask for your authorization to bring like a shaman to the house to purify the house. And I want to ask if you want to join us tomorrow on Sunday for this. I was like, look, man, first of all, I'm not going to join you anywhere. Like, it's my last Sunday before I start shooting this movie. I need to, you know, I need to fucking rest and be with my family. But if you want to bring the shaman, do it, you know, because I wouldn't tell you I strongly believe in those things, but I also have no evidence to believe against any of that. So if I cannot believe against or on it, I'd just rather be protected. So do the shaman, bring the shaman. So he brought the shaman, they did a ritual on the whole house. And then on Monday I arrive and he tells me, we did the ritual and the shaman told me there was a really dark energy, a really dark vibe around the house. He cleaned all the rooms. He went upstairs and he said in the bedroom right next to the stairs, something really bad happened there. It's the bedroom of the grandmother. And I just told him, well, something really bad is about to happen there. and we just shot the movie, 6 weeks, all good. Nothing happened, we just had the best time. So that, I mean, not 6 weeks in the house, we were like 3 weeks and a half in this house. But I guess he was right. And you know, the next thing I thought was, you know, this producer, I learned a lot from him. And I kind of felt, look, this guy, he's like taking care of every angle, you know, like he's taking care of the financial angle, he's taking care of the like logistics angle, now he's also taking care of the spiritual angle to make sure we can shoot this movie. So I guess I'm glad he did it, yeah.
So about the casting, the actors, you mentioned, to use your own words, that you had consecrated blood, but also fresh blood.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the process, the selection? How did that work?
Yes, you know, like I told you, originally the movie was going to take place in the Dominican Republic. So when that was going to happen, but we were going to shoot in Mexico. At some point, the co-production fell apart, so we said, let's shoot in Mexico, but we need to hire actors from the Dominican Republic. Not the girls are always from Mexico, but we needed the grandma from the Dominican Republic. So we were very limited, because we were looking at actresses who are old, like older than 65 years old, who can be from the Dominican Republic, have an accent. So there were like 3, you know, and none of them worked. So when we decided to actually shift the movie to Mexico, we had more, we were more open. And then we started thinking, okay, for this role of the grandmother of Josefa, let's just think of somebody who is like a known, respected, well-known actress. So we thought of Ofelia Medina, because Ofelia Medina had done a lot of theater, a lot of TV, a lot of film, but she had never done horror. So we called Ofelia Medina, and it was like an invitation. We offered her the role. She read it, she loved it, And I believe she was fantastic on it, and it was just great to work with her because she inspired like a whole professionalism on everyone else. So we had no casting on that role. We just offered her, she accepted. And then with the girls, we started doing casting, and I think we were very lucky to find Paola Miguel, the actress who plays Nala, because I really believe Paola Miguel is a very important part of the future of Mexican cinema. She's just such a gifted actress. She's
a big presence in the movie.
She's a big presence. She carries the whole movie in her shoulder, and she has this presence where she's just really smart. She has a really big instinct and great memory. She was 14 years old, but she's not a new actress. She's been acting since she was 7. So she's been in many TV shows, many plays, they just released like a big TV show in Disney Plus in Mexico about like Jules Verne and traveling to the center of the earth and all this. She stars in that. She's done a lot of things, and but this is her first leading role. So she really got on the blood of the character. And then in the case of Luna, that was harder because we just had to look at younger girls, and I just decided to choose somebody who looks and feels like the character. Like I maybe saw girls that were more experienced in acting, but what I like about Ivana, who's a very talented actress as well, and Ivana is I feel she's very mature for her age, and she had to do a lot of things that are really hard for a 7-year-old girl. She's also very smart, very intuitive. What I liked about Ivana is that she literally physically looked like the character. Like you saw her and she feels like so skinny, fragile, like she's actually very strong, but the way she looks is like she could fall if you make like this. So she looked like the character, and then the two of them, Paola and Ivana, just made a great
combination.
And then we also had an acting coach for the children, which was a great element, because the acting coach would focus on them, on have them ready to get the right emotion, but also have them ready to get out of the emotion whenever, because sometimes you yell cut and children will stay with the emotion. So the acting coach, for example, she worked with them from weeks before. She got them ready for the role. And there were moments when for example, that scene when they escape from the house the second time, when she hits the grandma, and the little girl is like, "You hit grandma," and Nala is like, "We have to go," and they start crying, and she carries her, and they go in the hallway. She was crying for real, the little girl, and she was like, "I'm afraid of this house. I'm afraid of what's happening. What do I do?" And I just told my DP, "Look, man, I'm a father. You're a father as well. We cannot make this girl suffer. So you have one take. Look at the focus, look at the lens, look at the lighting, look at all the technical aspects. Nothing can go wrong." And it was one take. We did one take, we said cut, and the mother was like, "You're not doing that again, right?" I was like, "No, we got it." And then something that the acting coach would do with Nala. The acting coach is also an actress, very gifted actress. She would get her ready for every scene. So, for example, if there was a scene as simple as Nala needs to pick up the phone and say, "Mommy, Grandma is a witch," the acting coach would say, "Okay, camera ready, sound ready, give me 5 minutes." And she would go with the camera already rolling. She would go with Nala, the acting coach, and would start telling her, "Nala, look what your grandma did to you. Look what your grandma's doing. Look at where your mother. You're alone. Your grandma is pushing you." And the acting coach would start literally crying, and we're like, "Look what she's doing to you. Look." And then Nala would be like building, and then she'll be like, "She's ready. Action! My grandma is a witch." So, but not to take any credit away from Paola, she's an amazing actress. I also worked with her in a TV show I just did last year. But I feel what happened is she was like a mountain of something ready to burn, and the acting coach was like the match that puts it there. That's how we did it. Yeah.
So, sounds like something that we should have for our Q&A sometimes. But okay, I think there's a question in the audience. Il y a une question en public. Allez-y.
Hello.
Je vous en prie.
Hello, Mr. Ezban. One question. I saw the symbolic. My question is, what is symbolic of Pedro and Abigail in the movie? Is the witchcraft connected to the mother? or is it apart?
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear correctly. What was the symbolic
we don't
what?
hear you.
What's the meaning of Pedro and Abigail in the movie? Because they're also into witchcraft, but is it connected to the family or is it just something whole different?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question because something I feel happens with this movie is a lot of people leave the theater confused about Pedro and Abigail. I don't know if many of you were left like that. So I want to clarify that. I mean, a lot of people in the audience in the world will leave confused, but you guys are lucky that I'm here. I can explain. So what happens there is these two characters, Pedro and Abigail, are very important for two reasons. First reason is the coming of age aspect of the whole story. Like I was telling her, you know, this film was born as a coming of age horror. So I really admired, you know, Guillermo del Toro's great coming of ages like Pan's Labyrinth or The Devil's Backbone, where he uses horror as a metaphor to young teens discovering the dangers of the adult world and what the adult world means, right? So in that sense, all I wanted was to create a coming of age narrative. The coming of age narrative is about Nala discovering, yeah, her past, witchcraft, blood, sex, kill her own mother, but it's also discovering her femininity, her sexuality. And I believe Abigail plays a big role in that because first she desires Pedro when she sees him in the pool. Then he sees Pedro kissing Abigail, so he kind of feels like when you see somebody kissing and you haven't kissed for the first time, she kind of feels like she wants to be there in a way. And then much later in the film, in the midpoint, when she escapes the house the first time, she sees them having sex, but it's not a normal sex, it's like a ritualistic sex. And then in the other ritual, when she escapes the house the second time, she actually sees Abigail killing herself. So I feel like she goes through all the stages in the character of Abigail. Like she's the one that tells her the story of the legend, so it goes to the fantasy stage, it goes to the erotic stage, it goes to the death. So that's the first reason, like strength, like to give more strength to the coming of age arc. And then the second reason, I believe, is just context, because no matter if this film is happening in Dominican Republic, Catemaco, Veracruz, or just a magic town we will not mention the name, I wanted to give context that this is a town where people practice the occult, people practice witchcraft. So if you wouldn't have, because some people have criticized Abigail, some people have told me she is like not part of the story, it's confusing, she shouldn't be in the movie, it's a subplot that never closes. But what I answer to that is, if you wouldn't have them, if you wouldn't have Abigail and the sex scene and the ritual, then what? You just have a grandma who happens to be a witch just in a house in the middle of nowhere. No, I wanted to really leave clear that this is a part of the country or a town where even the guy who cuts your lawn and the girl who cooks your food or cleans your bedrooms is kind of involved in the occult. That doesn't mean that she's evil. That doesn't mean that she's supporting the grandmother or that she knows what the plan, because also some people get confused in that. I never meant to say that she knows Josefa and is like a follower. It's none of that. It's just that the people that live in this area, servants of the house, people from the town, whatever, practiced the occult, and that kind of gives you context. So those were the two reasons of why Abigail is connected to the story. Yeah.
Talking about the occult, the magical town and stuff, I wanted to ask you, because you're Mexican, you live in Mexico, you were interested in mystical mythology of Mexico. Did you grow up with the tales of La Llorona or El Cucuy? You know, if you didn't eat your veggie or if you didn't want to go to bed?
You know what? I was very much afraid of La Llorona as a kid. I remember going to Six Flags, the amusement park. Before it was called Six Flags in Mexico, it was called Reino Aventura, just like an amusement park. And there was like a ride of La Llorona. You would get on the ride and you would see like La Llorona haunting you, and that was really scary for me. So yeah, I definitely grew up hearing horror legends and horror legends about witchcraft. But you know what? If I make memories, this is going to sound weird, but the two biggest fears I had growing up were not La Llorona. One of them was Batman, but like the beginning of Batman, when you see the Bruce Wayne's parents go to the movies and somebody kills them, and you see like the necklace with the white pearls kind of fall from the mother. That traumatized me, because now every time my parents would go out, I would be afraid that something will happen to them and I would remain an orphan. And my other fear was the Holocaust happening again, because that just put me that in school a lot. So those were my two biggest fears. But then as I grew older, they told me about La Llorona, and then I saw other movies. I remember seeing movies about witches. I remember seeing movies like David Cronenberg's The Fly, and I was really afraid of that. Those were some movies that traumatized me, that I saw maybe too young for my own age, for Halloween. So I had fears not only of Mexican folklore, just like on overall movies and cultural stuff that I learned. But La Llorona was definitely one of my biggest fears. And still, every time I see a movie about La Llorona, because there's a good Mexican movie called Kilómetro 31, really good, about La Llorona. And then there's like the American version of La Llorona. The movie might not be amazing, but the ghost of La Llorona really scares me to death. So yeah, it's a really creepy thing. Yeah.
In the meantime, we have another question from one of our live stream viewers, Christina. Can you tell us what is important when it comes to collaborating with actors, and what is a perfect actor on set, if that ever exists? Of course, you already mentioned the working with the child actors and the coach, but maybe for you in your relation with the actors.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. You know what? The importance of working with actors, just like, first of all, there are like very straightforward rules, right? Like, always give them patience, always give them time to concentrate, to focus, never put pressure on them. Because an actor is like, his tool of work is the emotions. So he's literally being naked on the set, taking his emotions out. So, there's this whole thing about the star system, and the actors need to be on a camper and need to be super comfortable, but there's something real behind that. Well, actors need to be really feel comfortable and the other thing is, you need to learn what kind of actor you're working with. Because like this movie, Mal de Ojo, it was very clear who is the lead. I've worked in other movies like The Similars or like Parallel, where it was more like an ensemble, where we have like 8 actors of the same screen time, the same importance every day on the set. But they are all completely different in their technique, in their approach of the craft. So some actors are a little more method, where they would ask you questions about the characters from 6 months before. They would really create the characters, and they would be like, okay, if today my character needs to cry, I need to be like 3 hours by myself, really focusing. And other actors are more like automatic, like, oh, you need me to cry? Okay, action, I cry. And that doesn't mean one actor is better than the other, but you need to know the style of each actor, because if you direct one actor with the style of another, you're fucking it up. Like, it happened to me one day in the set of another movie. I arrived on the set and I tell one actor, hey man, are you ready to see your father dying today? And he was like, he just left, because he was method actor. He was like completely, so it's something important where you to learn which actor is how. And then the other thing I would say is, just like any collaboration, actors, director of photography, production designer, composer, editor, whatever, a movie is all about collaboration. So it's all about listening and also being strong with your vision. You have to find that kind of middle point. Because a director that is always completely strong with his vision, I don't listen to anyone, I want this, is a stubborn guy that, why do you want a team? But a director that is always listening to, oh, you want this? Yeah, let's do it. Oh, you want this? Let's do it. It's an insecure director that doesn't know his vision. So you have to find some place in the middle, not just with actors, but with every collaboration. You have to arrive on the set being sure that you have the absolute truth, and at the same time being sure that you don't know absolutely anything. That's the hardest thing about this craft. And it happened, in Parallel, my previous movie, some actors told me in the end, Isaac, congratulations, because when a director tells you, no, I don't like this idea, it means that he's not listening. And when a director tells you, yeah, whatever you want, it means that he's just like giving to you whatever you want. But you were always in the middle, Isaac. You always chose. One day you would say, oh yeah, that idea is good. And one day you would say, no, it has to be my way. So, and it's not about ego. It's not about giving one and winning one. It's more about letting the best idea win. So that's the best thing with actors, keeping in mind that this is also their movie. They're also doing an important job. So listen to them. Listen to their ideas, try to make sense of them. But if something is very important for you, fight to keep it the way it is. Yeah.
Est-ce qu'il y a encore des questions dans la salle? N'hésitez pas. Otherwise, one question. You said, I think, once that similar in the incident were sold to Netflix after the theatrical release.
Yes.
What about this film?
This film, Evil Eye, about the distribution. Yeah, this film is being distributed by Cinepolis worldwide. They have sold to many territories. So the film got a theatrical release in Mexico. It's streaming in the US in VIX Plus. It got a theatrical release in the rest of Latin America. It got a theatrical release in Russia, Vietnam, Japan, many countries in Europe. And then it got sold to Amazon Prime Video, only for Mexico and Latin America, so anyone in Mexico, Latin America can see it in Amazon Prime. So all America is streaming. US can stream it in VIX Plus, Mexico, Latam can stream it in Amazon Prime. And as for the rest of the countries, it's actually getting a release here in Belgium, and also I believe in France, Luxembourg, Swiss, and even like French-speaking territories in Africa and other countries. It's getting a release in May. There's going to be a DVD. And I'm not sure what's the platform, but it's exciting that not even in Mexico we have a DVD, but I actually have seen pictures of a DVD for Belgium called like Mal de Ojo in French or something, like
Le mauvais œil.
like the Ojo del Mal or something like that. So yeah, you're getting it in Belgium, I think in May. I'm not sure about streaming platforms, but I know it's coming out here. It came out in Russia. It came out in many places in Eastern Europe. You know, if you just follow me in social media, I'm just Isaac Ezban in Instagram, Twitter. I'm sure I will announce whenever the release comes out. Yeah.
And did the success of Parallel was a film from Canada? I think it was for you in English, your first film in English. Did the success of this film help you to get a bigger budget for this one and to have a bigger release maybe, or?
Well, it helped me in my career definitely, because you know, as a Mexican director making a film in English with a big studio like Brown Studios that is making, you know, giant films like Joker and stuff, definitely helps me in my image, in my PR, in my career. I wouldn't say specifically it helped me with the budget of this movie. Also, you know, movies don't happen from one day to the next. When I did Parallel, this movie was already in development, you know, like, you know, the whole process. I told you that the producer gave me the script and I read it and I gave notes. This was even before I went to Canada to shoot Parallel. So I wouldn't say that it necessarily helped me to get a higher budget. But it definitely has pushed my career to have a full, and also, you know, the box office success of Mal de Ojo helped me in my career for my next movie. So everything helps. It's not that it specifically helps this movie in particular. It's more like it helps my career in general. But in the case of this movie, I believe what helped the most was it's a horror movie. Horror is definitely more commercial than sci-fi. Horror is very much commercial in Mexico. Like Mexican movies that sell the most tickets are romantic comedies or horror. So that helped a lot. Having Cinepolis on board helped a lot. Having, you know, this combination of my filmography and this producer helped a lot of confidence. And just having, you know, Ofelia Medina, the actress, and this whole story of a witchcraft, that helped a lot. Yeah.
Coming quickly back to the scripts, now that you mention it, yesterday we had the people from the elderly here, and they were also working together, several people,
Yeah.
co-writing the script, which was really interesting because, of course, writing is typically something that you imagine being something that you would do all by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so we asked them, how does that work? Co-writing the script, exactly who does what, and so now I'm intrigued to ask you the same question here because you went through maybe a similar process with this script?
Yeah, I say writing collaboration is always helpful for the result of a movie. You know what? When I did my first two movies, I wrote on my own, and I love that, having full control of that. But some of my recent scripts have always been collaborations. This was a collaboration. My next movie that I'm shooting in the summer is also a collaboration. The next movie I'm doing that I'm trying to get funds for is also a collaboration. And you know why? It's because it just gives you another mindset to work with. It opens your mind. I mean, look at filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, who is like my favorite director. If you look like a screenplay like Inception or like The Dark Knight, that script is like amazing, but I would say that script is even better than a script like Tenet, which he wrote on his own. And not to shit on Tenet, I love that movie as well, but I will say, when you have a collaboration, it opens your mind, and some of the best movies ever made were made by co-writers. Now, I will tell you, there are challenges as well. With this movie in particular, we were three writers. So one is the original writer from Dominican Republic who came up with the story. So he's very much like, this is my baby, this is my baby. But he was very open. The other one is the producer, who happens to be also a writer. So he's very much thinking in terms of like budget and what can we do, and the business viability, what's going to sell. And then you have me, who I think of both those things, but I also think of just making a great movie. So the three of us are looking for different things, but that's why it made a great collaboration. Because at some point, maybe I was getting too obsessed with, visually this is very cool, visually is very, very cool. But the original writer would say, it's not information-wise, it's not going to be clear. And the producer would say, this is going to be very hard to get made. So I believe we had a lot of calls. The co-writing process started like in 2018. And we finished this, we shot this movie in 2021. So for those 3 years, we were always working the script, like maybe not full time, but like we would work a draft, stop working for a few months, work again. So I believe that made
conversations, I imagine.
What?
Conversations.
Long conversation. Yeah, we like if I had a Zoom with them and starts at 4 p.m., I know I need to cancel my day. It's going to run until like I fall to sleep. And especially during the year of production, 2021, we had a lot of work on it, and especially the last 3 months before. And it got to a point where we all started to fight. I don't mean fight in a bad way, like fight in a good way, where you have to defend your arguments. And in the end, we ended up with a script with the three of us feel happy with. And that was this particular experience. Other scripts have been more like I make the script, I write it fully, and then I hire a writer to give his input and change it. Some others are more like I make an idea, I hire somebody to write the script. So they're all processes are different, but in general, I think it always helps to have another mind with you. Yeah.
Est-ce qu'il y a encore des questions dans la salle? Parce qu'on arrive tout doucement à la fin du Q&A. Well, you mentioned a film coming, a film you're working on a next project. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil you too much. Other that I hope we can see that beef. Hopefully, I don't want to.
You're gonna finish it for the BIFF?
No, not for the next year. I'm just gonna shoot it. But what I will say is that it's also a coming of age. It's also horror, but this time I'm doing a very masculine coming of age, which is interesting because Mal de Ojo was a very feminine coming of age in a way, and my new movie is a very masculine coming of age. So it feels like, in a way, if I do these two movies back to back, my movie number 4 and number 5, I'm kind of doing my epiphany of the coming of age. It's like when Clint Eastwood did like Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, like two different perspectives on World War II. Like I'm doing the very feminine coming of age and the very masculine coming of age back to back. So I'm excited about that. It has monsters, it has creatures, it has kids, but it's very masculine. And I come from a family of 3 male brothers, and this is a story of 3 brothers. So I won't tell you more, other that I have most of the funding ready, but I'm still looking for some of the funding. If everything goes right, we expect to go to shoot this summer. And hopefully, I won't say which year, when, but hopefully you can see that beef. That'd be amazing, yeah.
Okay, so I think, unless there's other questions from the audience, à moins qu'il y ait d'autres questions dans le public, je dirais dernière occasion. I think I'm personally all out of questions. I think you're out of beer, and so it's probably a good time to say, first of all, congratulations for this extreme, for this really nice treat of a movie that you brought us this year at BIF, and we're really looking forward to
For the
the
jury
next
Q&A
one.
anyway. For those who want to see Mr. Ezban again, he will be there on Thursday for the Q&A of the jury.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And we'll
I
see
didn't
you
know
again.
I was doing a Q&A of the jury, but I guess I'll do it, yeah.
Yes.
And that's another song, by the way, probably.
That's on
It's gonna be
Thursday?
Song 6.
Yes, it's
Okay, they
On
didn't tell me that.
Thursday evening.
So wait, so you
is-
saw this song I just did, and you want another song?
Yes,
I just
and
get
it's-
my life on the stage,
It's
but okay.
technically, it's today, actually, the next one, because
Yes.
we're already past
It's-
midnight.
it's
so
this
it's
evening.
already.
So I don't know if I can have a song by the 24 hours from now, but I'll be there, I guess, yeah. And yeah, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed Evil Eye. You know, if you all liked it, or if you've seen the video, you want to recommend it, always it's important to post on social media about the film, you know, just hashtag Mal de Ojo or Evil Eye in Twitter or in Instagram, write your reviews in Letterboxd, whatever you use, because it's important to spread the word about the movie. If you have any more questions and you could answer today, I'm very reachable in social media. I'm Isaac Ezban, both Instagram and Twitter. And see you at Beef. See you tomorrow, and see you
More-
hopefully with more movies
Tonight.
one day soon. Yeah.
Don't forget the
Tonight, yeah.
signing session,
Yeah.
and thank you very much, Isaac.
Thank you all. I hope you
you.
enjoyed Mal de Ojo. Yeah.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Who